Commander Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the human embassy building and looked out at the strange alien city below. 3 years had passed since the Galactic Council welcomed humanity into their community and promised them great things. They said humans would get advanced technology and peaceful trade with hundreds of alien worlds. They said Earth would become rich and powerful. Jake had believed them then, but now he felt only anger in his chest. The tall crystal towers of Nexus Prime stretched up into the purple sky like giant needles. Flying vehicles moved between them in perfect lines while alien beings walked the streets below. Everything looked clean and organized and peaceful, but Jake knew the truth behind the pretty buildings and smooth words. The aliens had lied to humanity from the very beginning. Dr. Lisa Carter walked into the room behind him and set down her datapad with more force than needed. She had been Earth's chief scientist, dealing with alien biology for 2 years now, and the job was making her bitter. Every month, she asked the Council for medical technology that could save millions of human lives. Every month, they said no. The Zeltharian representative always smiled with his rows of sharp teeth and told her that humans were not ready for such advanced knowledge. They rejected our request again, Lisa said to Jake without looking at him. The cancer treatment that could save 10 million people this year alone. Too dangerous for primitive humans, they said. Jake turned away from the window and saw the tired lines around Lisa's eyes. She had worked 18 hours a day trying to help her people, and the aliens treated her like a child asking for something she could not understand. What reason did they give this time? He asked. The same one they always give. Humans need more time to develop properly. Maybe in 50 years we will be mature enough to handle such responsibility. Lisa picked up her datapad and scrolled through the rejection notice. But they had no problem giving us weapons to fight the Corvan pirates in the outer systems. Funny how we are mature enough to die for them, but not mature enough to save lives. The door opened again, and Captain Ben Hughes entered the room. His uniform was dirty and torn, and he looked like he had not slept in days. Jake knew that Ben had just returned from another supply run through the dangerous trade routes that the Council forced humans to use. The good routes were reserved for alien ships, while human traders had to risk pirate attacks and equipment failures on the old paths. How bad was it this time? Jake asked Ben. Ben sat down heavily in a chair and rubbed his face with both hands. Lost 2 ships this week. The pirates knew exactly where we would be and when. Someone is giving them information about our routes. He looked up at Jake with angry eyes. The Council says they cannot help us because they do not have enough ships to patrol the area. But I saw 3 Zeltharian battlecruisers just sitting in empty space 2 systems away. Lisa slammed her datapad down on the table. They want us to fail. Every time we ask for help, they find an excuse to say no. Every time we try to trade with other species, they create new rules that make it impossible. We are nothing more than servants to them. Jake walked to the communication terminal and checked the latest messages from Earth. President Karen Walsh had sent another report about the demands from the Corvan Empire. They wanted humanity to give up all mining rights in the asteroid belt. The Council said they would mediate the dispute, but Jake knew how that would end. Every time the Council mediated between humans and aliens, the aliens got what they wanted, and humans got nothing. There is something else, Ben said quietly. I heard rumors from some of the other human ship captains. Strange things happening on the colony worlds. People disappearing in the night. Equipment breaking down for no reason. Some say they have seen alien ships where they should not be. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. The colonies were supposed to be safe under Council protection. If aliens were operating there without permission, it could only mean bad things. He thought about his own family on Earth and wondered if they were truly safe or if the aliens were just waiting for the right moment to strike. Dr. Lisa Carter stood up and walked to the window. My sister lives on New Boston Colony with her children. Last week, she sent a message saying that their water purification system failed and 3 people died before they could fix it. She asked for replacement parts, but the council said there would be a 6-month delay in shipping. 6 months, Ben repeated. But I know for a fact that those same parts were delivered to the Zeltharian colony in the next system within 2 days of their request. Jake made a decision that had been growing in his mind for weeks. We need to start keeping records of everything, every rejection, every delay, every excuse they give us. I want to know exactly how many times they have broken their promises. 3 humans stood in silence for a moment and looked out at the alien city. Somewhere in those crystal towers, beings from across the galaxy made decisions about human lives without caring about human suffering. They had welcomed Earth into their community with speeches about friendship and cooperation, but friendship meant treating people as equals, and cooperation meant working together for everyone's benefit. Jake knew now that humanity had no friends among the stars. They had only masters who were slowly tightening the chains around human freedom. But humans had always been stubborn and difficult to control. The aliens would learn that soon enough. Dr. Alex Rodriguez sat in the underground computer lab beneath the Earth Defense Force headquarters and stared at the screen in front of him. Numbers and symbols scrolled past his eyes faster than any normal person could read, but Alex was not normal. He was the best code breaker on Earth, and for 6 months he had been working on something that could change everything. The aliens thought their communications were completely secure. They sent messages between their worlds using codes that they believed no human could understand. But Alex had been studying their language patterns and mathematical systems since the day humanity joined the Galactic Council. Now he was finally starting to see through their lies. "Got something interesting here," Alex called out to his assistant, Maria Santos, who was working at another computer across the room. "Take a look at this message from the Zeltharian High Command to their research station on Omega 7. Maria walked over and read the text that Alex had decoded. Her face went pale as she understood what the words meant. They are talking about human test subjects, living humans that they are experimenting on. Alex nodded grimly and pulled up more messages. It gets worse. Look at this one from 3 days ago. The message was from a Corvan general to his fleet commanders. It contained detailed plans for attacking Earth's orbital defense stations when the time was right. When the time is right, Maria repeated slowly. That means they are planning to attack us. Not just attack, Alex said as he opened another file. Look at this communication between council members from last week. They are talking about the final phase of something called Project Harvest. Maria read the message and felt sick. The aliens were discussing how to divide up Earth's resources after they conquered the planet. They talked about human beings like they were animals to be sorted and used for different jobs. Some humans would work in the mines, some would fight, as soldiers in alien wars, and some would be used for medical experiments. How long have they been planning this? Maria asked. Alex pulled up older messages that he had decoded over the past few months. From what I can tell, they never intended to treat us as equals. The whole thing about welcoming humanity into the galactic community was just a way to keep us calm while they got ready to take over. The door to the lab opened and General Paul Davis walked in. He was a big man with gray hair and serious eyes who had spent 30 years protecting Earth from various threats. But he had never faced anything like this before. "What do you have? For me?" he asked Alex. "Proof that we have been betrayed," Alex replied, and handed the general a data pad with all the decoded messages. "Every member of the Galactic Council knows about the plan to enslave humanity. They have been working together to weaken us for the past 3 years. General Davis read through the messages in silence. His face got harder with each page, and by the time he finished reading, his hands were shaking with anger. "How many people know about this?" "Just the 3 of us so far," Maria said. "We wanted to make sure the evidence was solid before we told anyone else." "Good thinking," the general said. "If this information gets out too early, it could cause panic or warn the Aliens that we know about their plans. He looked at Alex and Maria with respect. You two have just saved humanity, but now we need to figure out what to do with this information. Alex had been thinking about that question for hours. We need to tell President Walsh immediately. And we need to start preparing defenses without letting the aliens know that we suspect anything. General Davis nodded. I will contact the president through secure channels. In the meantime, I want you to keep decoding their messages. We need to know exactly when they plan to attack and how many ships they have. Maria pulled up a star map on her computer screen. According to these messages, they have been moving military forces into position around human space for the past 6 months. They have ships stationed in 12 different systems that are supposed to be neutral territory. Clever, the general said with bitter admiration. They surround us slowly so we do not notice the trap until it is too late. Alex discovered something else in the alien communications that made him angry. Look at this. The terrorist attacks on our colony worlds were not random. The aliens have been funding and directing them to make us afraid and desperate. The attack on New Denver that killed 500 people, Maria said as she read through the files. The Zeltharians paid for the weapons and gave the terrorists detailed maps of the colony's weak points. General Davis closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, they were filled with cold determination. They killed our people and then offered to help us find the killers. They created the problem so they could pretend to be our friends when they offered the solution. The 3 humans worked through the night decoding more alien messages and building a complete picture of the conspiracy against Earth. They learned that every species in the Galactic Council was part of the plan, except for a few smaller groups that were also targeted for conquest. The aliens had done this before to other young civilizations, and they always succeeded. But they had never tried to enslave humans before. They did not understand that humans were different from the other species they had conquered. Humans did not give up when things got difficult. Humans got angry, and when humans got angry enough, they became very dangerous. We need to contact our people in other systems, Alex said as dawn light started coming through the small window in the lab. Every human ship captain, every colony governor, every scientist working with alien technology, they all need to know what is really happening. Maria was already working on that problem. I can send coded messages through the regular communication channels. If I hide the real information inside routine reports, the aliens will not notice anything suspicious. General. Davis smiled for the first time in hours. Do it. And make sure our people understand that they need to start preparing for war without making it obvious. We are going to turn their own trick against them. As the general left the lab to contact President Walsh, Alex and Maria continued their work. They had uncovered the biggest lie in human history, but they had also found something else. They had found proof that humanity was stronger and smarter than their enemies believed. The aliens thought they were hunting helpless prey, but they were about to discover that they had awakened a very dangerous predator. Colonel Rick Turner stood in the abandoned subway tunnel beneath Geneva and watched as workers installed the last pieces of equipment in what would become humanity's most secret weapons laboratory. 3 months had passed since Dr. Alex Rodriguez discovered the alien conspiracy, and everything had changed. President Walsh had authorized the creation of the Terra Liberation Front with unlimited resources and complete secrecy. Rick had spent 20 years in special forces operations around the world, but nothing had prepared him for this kind of mission. He was not just fighting human enemies now, but alien species with technology far beyond anything Earth possessed. But Rick had learned something important during his military career. Superior technology meant nothing if you did not know how to use it properly, and aliens were about to learn that humans were very good at finding weaknesses. Dr. Jennifer White walked down the tunnel carrying a metal case that contained pieces of alien technology her team had managed to acquire. She was one of the smartest physicists on Earth, but the Galactic Council had refused to let her study their advanced science. They said humans were too primitive to understand such complex concepts. Jennifer was about to prove them very wrong. "What do you have for us today?" Rick asked as Jennifer set down her case on a work table. "Something interesting," she replied, and opened the case to reveal a small device that glowed with blue light. "This is a Zeltharian power cell that I borrowed from their embassy. It produces more energy than our best nuclear reactor but weighs less than a coffee cup." Rick whistled softly as he looked at the device. "Can you figure out how it works?" Jennifer smiled in a way that made Rick think of a wolf watching sheep. "I already have. The aliens use something called exotic matter to store energy in folded space. The technology is actually quite simple once you understand the basic principles." "How simple?" Rick asked. "Simple enough that we can build our own version within 2 weeks," Jennifer said. "And once we do that, we can start building weapons that will surprise our alien friends." Across the tunnel, Angela Foster was setting up communication equipment. That would let her stay in contact with human operatives throughout alien space. Angela had worked for intelligence agencies for 15 years, and she knew how to build networks of spies and informants. The aliens thought humans were too honest and direct to be good at deception, but Angela was about to show them how wrong they were. "I have people in place on 12 different alien worlds," Angela told Rick as she tested her equipment. "Ship, captains, traders, even some diplomats who are working with us. The aliens trust humans because they think we are too stupid to lie to them effectively." Rick nodded as he watched Angela work. "What kind of information are they sending you?" "Everything," Angela said with satisfaction. "Military base locations, ship schedules, political disagreements between council members. The aliens are so confident that they do not bother to hide their activities from humans. They talk about their plans right in front of our people." On Mars, factory worker Mike Thompson was organizing a very different kind of resistance. The Red Planet had been one of humanity's first colonies, and now it housed millions of people who worked in the mines and factories that produced goods for the alien trade network. But Mike was turning those same facilities into weapons production centers without the aliens noticing. Mike stood in the main assembly hall of the Olympia mining complex and looked at the workers who had gathered for the night shift meeting. These were ordinary people who had come to Mars to build better lives for their families. Now they were being asked to risk everything to save humanity from slavery. "The aliens think we are just dumb workers who will do whatever they tell us," Mike said to the assembled crowd. "They do not know that we have been preparing for this moment for months. Every tunnel we dig, every piece of equipment we build, every supply shipment we receive is part of our plan to fight back." The workers listened quietly as Mike explained how they would use the mining tunnels as hidden weapons storage areas and the factories as secret production facilities. The aliens inspected the human facilities regularly, but they only looked for signs of rebellion in obvious places. They never thought to check inside the walls of buildings or beneath the floors of workshops. Captain Steve Allen commanded what appeared to be a peaceful research vessel exploring the outer regions of human space. But the ship's real mission was to establish hidden bases in unexplored star systems where humanity could store supplies and weapons for the coming war. Steve had been a military pilot before joining the research service, and he knew how to make a warship look like a harmless science vessel. "System scan complete," reported his navigation officer, Lieutenant Carol White, as they entered another empty solar system. "No alien activity detected within 50 light years." Steve nodded and gave orders to begin construction of another supply depot. His crew worked quickly to deploy automated factories and defensive systems on a small asteroid. Within a few days, the installation would be producing weapons and equipment for the Resistance while remaining invisible to alien sensors. Back on Earth, Colonel Turner received reports from all of these operations and felt a grim satisfaction. The aliens had spent 3 years slowly tightening their control over humanity, but humans had used that same time to prepare for war. Every insult, every rejection, every broken promise had been carefully documented and would be paid back with Interest. Dr. Jennifer White made another breakthrough when she successfully reverse-engineered a Corvin shield generator. The device created an energy barrier that could stop most weapons, but Jennifer discovered a frequency that would disrupt the shield completely. She immediately shared this information with Angela Foster, who passed it on to human operatives throughout the galaxy. The aliens have been using the same defensive technology for over 1,000 years, Jennifer explained to Rick as she demonstrated her discovery. They never bothered to improve it because no one has ever found a way to break through their shields before. And now we have, Rick said with a cold smile. Angela received a message from one of her operatives that made her laugh out loud. A human trader named Danny Kim had been listening to alien military communications and discovered that the Zeltharian fleet was planning to attack Earth in exactly 6 weeks. The aliens were so confident of victory that they were already arguing about which species would get the best parts of the planet. They think this will be easy, Angela told Rick as she shared the intercepted messages. They expect humanity to surrender as soon as they see the size of their fleet. Rick thought about all the hidden weapons factories, secret bases, and trained resistance fighters that humanity had prepared over the past months. The aliens were about to discover that humans did not surrender easily, and when they fought back, they fought to win. "Let them come," he said quietly. "We will be ready for them." Ambassador Chris Taylor walked through the grand corridors of the Galactic Council building on Nexus Prime and tried to look excited about the ceremony that was supposed to happen in 2 hours. The aliens had invited her to witness what they called humanity's elevation to full membership in the galactic community. Chris knew it was actually going to be the moment when they demanded Earth's complete surrender. The Zeltharian Chancellor had sent a personal message explaining that humanity would finally receive all the benefits of advanced civilization. All they had to do was accept a few small changes to their government structure and allow alien advisors to help manage Earth's resources. Chris understood that this meant giving up human independence forever, but Chris was not really an ambassador. She was Colonel Chris Taylor of Earth Defense Force Special Operations, and the ceremony was about to become something very different from what the aliens expected. Hidden beneath her diplomatic robes were advanced weapons that Dr. Jennifer White had built using stolen alien technology. The other members of her delegation were also soldiers disguised as diplomats. President Karen Walsh sat in her office on Earth and watched the live broadcast from Nexus Prime on her secure communications screen. She looked calm and confident, but inside, she felt the weight of every decision that had led to this moment. In 30 minutes, she would give the order that would start the first interstellar war in human history. "All units report ready," General Paul Davis said from his command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. "Admiral Brooks confirms that the fleet is in position. Colonel Turner's teams are standing by at their targets. Dr. Rodriguez has his computer viruses ready to deploy." Karen nodded and opened a secure channel to every human ship captain, colony governor, and military commander in known space. "This is President Walsh speaking to all human forces. Today we learn whether we will live as free people or die as slaves. In 29 minutes we will have our answer." On Nexus Prime, Chris Taylor entered the grand ceremony hall where representatives from dozens of alien species had gathered to witness humanity's submission. The Zeltharian Chancellor stood at the center of the room holding a document that contained the terms of Earth's surrender. His rows of sharp teeth were visible as he smiled at the approaching human delegation. "Ambassador Taylor," the Chancellor said in his smooth voice that always reminded Chris of oil floating on water. "How wonderful that you could join us for this historic moment. Your species is about to enter a new age of prosperity and guidance." Chris smiled back and tried to look grateful. "We are honored by the Council's attention and eager to hear what you have planned for us." The Chancellor activated a holographic display that showed the terms of the agreement. Earth would dissolve its independent government and accept direct rule by Council appointees. All human military forces would be disbanded and replaced by alien security units. Earth's natural resources would be managed by alien corporations for the benefit of the galactic community. As you can see, we have thought of everything, the Chancellor said proudly. Humans will no longer need to worry about the burden of governing themselves. We will handle all the difficult decisions while your people focus on the jobs we assign to them. Other alien representatives in the room began making comments about how generous the Council was being to such a primitive species. A Corvan general mentioned that most conquered worlds were not given such comfortable terms of surrender. A Drakmari trade minister talked about the profits that could be made from human labor. Chris listened to them discuss her species like they were talking about livestock and felt her anger grow cold and sharp. "This is indeed generous," she said carefully. "But I wonder if you have considered what might happen if humanity chooses not to accept these terms." The Chancellor's smile became even wider. "Oh, but you do not have a choice, dear Ambassador. You see, we have been preparing for this moment for quite some time." He activated another display that showed the positions of alien military forces throughout human space. As we speak, our fleets are surrounding every human world and space station. Any attempt at resistance will result in the complete destruction of your civilization. Around the room, alien guards began moving into position near the exits. Chris noticed that several of them were carrying devices that looked like restraints designed for human prisoners. The ceremony was about to become an arrest. "You have 30 seconds to signal your acceptance," the Chancellor told Chris. "After that, we will assume that Earth has chosen the path of destruction, and we will act accordingly." Chris reached into her ceremonial case and pulled out what looked like a communication device. "In that case, I have a message to send to my government." She pressed a button on the device and spoke clearly into it. "This is Ambassador Taylor. The Chancellor has made his position very clear. Execute Order 7 immediately." The Chancellor frowned as he heard the strange phrase. "What is Order 7? He demanded. Chris smiled at him with the same cold expression that had made enemy soldiers surrender during her military career. "Order 7 means that the diplomatic solution has failed and humanity chooses to fight." At that moment, every computer system in the Galactic Council building began showing error messages as Dr. Alex Rodriguez's viruses activated throughout the alien network. Emergency lights started flashing and security doors locked themselves shut. The aliens had built their entire civilization around advanced computer technology, and now that technology was turning against them. The Chancellor stared at his malfunctioning control panel in shock. "This is impossible. Human technology cannot affect our systems." "You taught us well," Chris said as she and her team pulled weapons from their ceremonial cases. "You showed us how arrogant and careless you could be when you thought you were dealing with primitive animals." Throughout the galaxy, human operatives who had been pretending to be harmless traders and workers began attacking alien military bases and communication centers. Angela Foster's spy network struck at exactly the same moment, using information they had gathered over months of careful observation. Alien commanders found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to know their every weakness. Admiral Susan Brooks gave the order that she had been waiting months to deliver. "All ships, this is Admiral Brooks. The gloves are off. Show them what humanity can do." Human vessels throughout space dropped their disguises and revealed the advanced weapons that Dr. Jennifer White had built using reverse-engineered alien technology. The first shots of the war were fired simultaneously in 50 different star systems as humanity announced to the galaxy that they would not go quietly into slavery. The aliens had expected easy victory over a species they considered weak and divided. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that had been preparing for this moment with careful planning and cold determination. On Nexus Prime, Chris Taylor looked at the chaos around her as alien guards tried to restore order while their own technology worked against them. "You wanted to see what humans are capable of when we stop being polite," she told the Chancellor. Now you are going to learn. Admiral Susan Brooks stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Defiance and watched as human warships dropped out of hyperspace around the Zeltharian home world of Zephyr Prime. The aliens had built their capital city on a beautiful blue planet with 3 moons, and they thought their orbital defense stations made it impossible to attack. They were about to learn that humans had spent months studying every weakness in their defenses. All ships report ready for assault, her communications officer announced. Captain Allen's squadron has disabled the early warning satellites and Colonel Turner's Special Forces teams have taken control of the main defense grid. Susan nodded and opened a channel to the planetary government. This is Admiral Brooks of the Earth Defense Force. You have exactly 10 minutes to surrender all military forces and release any human prisoners in your custody. After that, we will consider this planet a legitimate military target. The response came quickly from the Zeltharian High Command. This is impossible. Human ships cannot penetrate our defenses. You are bluffing with inferior technology, and we will not be intimidated by primitive threats. Your choice, Susan said calmly and closed the communication channel. She turned to her weapons officer. Target their orbital weapons platforms. Show them that human technology is not as primitive as they believed. The human fleet opened fire with weapons that the aliens had never seen before. Dr. Jennifer White had not just copied alien technology, but improved it using human engineering principles. The energy beams that struck the Zeltharian defense platforms burned through their shields like they were made of paper instead of advanced force fields. On the planet's surface, General Paul Davis led the ground assault against the capital city. His soldiers moved through the alien streets using tactics that confused and terrified the defenders. Where the Zeltharians expected direct attacks, humans used stealth and misdirection. Where they prepared for conventional warfare, humans struck from unexpected directions using knowledge gained from months of careful intelligence gathering. The Zeltharian military had fought wars for thousands of years, but they had always used the same basic strategies. Their enemies attacked in predictable patterns that could be countered with standard defensive measures. Humans fought differently, and the aliens could not adapt quickly enough to survive the assault. Captain Steve Allen commanded a squadron of ships that the aliens had dismissed as harmless research vessels, but the peaceful-looking hulls concealed advanced weapons systems, and the crews were all military veterans disguised as scientists. Steve's ships struck at the Corvan Empire's main fleet base while the defenders were still trying to understand what was happening on other fronts. Enemy ships are not responding to our attacks, the Corvan fleet commander reported to his superiors. Their shields are deflecting our weapons, and their return fire is penetrating our defenses. How is this possible? The answer was that humans had learned to think like their enemies and then found ways to defeat them. Every alien weakness discovered by Angela Foster's spy network was being exploited by human forces throughout the galaxy. Ships that had seemed invincible were burning in space, while planets that had never been conquered were falling to human assault troops. Mike Thompson led the uprising on Mars that turned the red planet into a fortress bristling with hidden weapons. The alien overseers who had treated human workers like slaves found themselves surrounded by angry miners who knew every tunnel and passage in the vast underground complexes. The aliens had superior individual weapons, but humans had superior numbers, and they were fighting for their freedom. The spaceport is secure, Mike reported to his team leaders. All alien ships have been captured or destroyed. The orbital platforms are under our control, and we have enough supplies to hold this position for months if necessary. Dr. Jennifer White had moved her laboratory to a secret base in the asteroid belt, where she continued developing new weapons based on captured alien technology. Her latest creation was a device that could disrupt the quantum communication systems that the aliens used to coordinate their forces. Without reliable communication, the various alien fleets began making mistakes that human commanders were quick to exploit. Their entire command structure is falling apart, Jennifer reported to Admiral Brooks during a secure transmission. They cannot talk to each other fast enough to respond to our attacks. We are fighting dozens of separate battles instead of one coordinated war. The psychological impact of the human offensive was just as devastating as the physical damage. For the first time in their history, the members of the Galactic Council were facing an enemy that refused to surrender even when outnumbered. Human forces continued fighting even when their positions seemed hopeless, and they often achieved victory through sheer determination. Colonel Rick Turner's Special Forces teams struck at targets throughout alien space, using hit-and-run tactics that left the enemy confused and demoralized. They would appear without warning, destroy important facilities, and disappear before reinforcements could arrive. The aliens began to fear that humans could strike anywhere at any time. Intelligence reports that 3 more species are considering withdrawal from the Council Alliance, Angela Foster informed President Walsh during their daily briefing. The crystalline hegemony and the nomadic fleets are both sending messages asking for separate peace negotiations. They do not want to be on the losing side of this war. Karen Walsh felt a bitter satisfaction as she read the reports from the various battlefronts. The aliens who had planned to enslave humanity were now begging for mercy from the species they had considered primitive. Tell them that we will consider peace terms after they have released all human prisoners and withdrawn their forces from human space. The turning point came when Captain Ben Hughes led a squadron of converted cargo ships in an attack on the Corvin home system. The aliens had concentrated their remaining fleet around their capital world, believing that human forces would not dare attack such a heavily defended target. They were wrong. Ben's ships approached the system using captured alien identification codes that Angela's spies had provided. The Corvin defenders thought they were seeing friendly reinforcements, until the human ships dropped their disguises and opened fire at point-blank range. The surprise attack destroyed half the alien fleet before they could respond effectively. "This is Captain Hughes to all Corvin forces," Ben broadcast on all frequencies. "Your empire has fallen and your fleets are scattered. You have 2 choices. Surrender now and we will treat you according to the laws of war. Continue fighting and we will show you the same mercy you showed to human colonies." The Corvin admiral looked at the burning wreckage of his once mighty fleet and realized that the war was lost. His species had ruled a dozen star systems for centuries, but they had made the mistake of underestimating human determination. "We surrender," he transmitted on all channels. "Please show mercy to our civilians." Throughout the galaxy, other alien commanders were making the same decision. The Galactic Council's Great Alliance was collapsing as species after species chose to surrender rather than face complete destruction. Humans had proven that they could not be enslaved, and they would not stop fighting until every threat to Earth was eliminated. Admiral Brooks received surrender messages from 17 different alien fleets in a single day. The species that had planned to divide up Earth's resources were now offering to pay tribute just to be allowed to survive. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about the dangers of awakening human anger. President Karen Walsh stood in the ruins of the Galactic Council chamber on Nexus Prime and looked at the alien representatives who had gathered to negotiate the terms of their surrender. 6 months had passed since humanity began their war of liberation, and the galaxy was a very different place. The species that had once plotted to enslave Earth were now begging for the right to exist under human protection. The crystalline hegemony had been the first to break away from the Council Alliance when they realized that humans could not be defeated. Their ambassador, a being made of living crystal that reflected rainbow light, spoke in harmonious tones that conveyed both respect and fear. "The hegemony wishes to formally apologize for our participation in the conspiracy against humanity. We offer our complete submission to human authority and request permission to continue existing as a peaceful member of the new galactic order." Karen listened to similar speeches from representatives of dozens of species that had once considered themselves superior to humanity. The nomadic fleets offered their advanced navigation technology in exchange for protection from the few remaining Council loyalists. The merchant guilds promised to give humans favorable trade terms and access to markets throughout the galaxy. Everyone wanted to be on the winning side now that the war was over. Admiral Susan Brooks commanded a fleet that included ships from across the galaxy, all flying under the banner of the Human Federation. Former enemies now served as junior partners in a military alliance that had proven capable of defeating any threat. The irony was not lost on Susan that many of her most effective captains were aliens who had switched sides when they realized that humans offered better leadership than their own governments. "Fleet status report," Susan requested from her aide, Lieutenant Carol White, who had been promoted after her excellent service during the war. "We have 347 vessels under our direct command," Carol replied. "Another 200 ships from allied species are operating under human oversight. The Zeltharian remnant fleet has been reduced to 12 vessels hiding in the Outer Rim territories." Susan nodded with satisfaction. The mighty Zeltharian Empire that had once controlled a quarter of the galaxy now consisted of a few refugee ships carrying the survivors of their defeated civilization. They had been the architects of the conspiracy against humanity, and they had paid the highest price for their betrayal. Dr. Lisa Carter finally had access to all the medical technology that the aliens had denied to humanity for years. But now she was the one making decisions about who would receive advanced treatments and who would have to wait. The planets that had supported the enslavement of Earth found themselves at the back of the line when it came to receiving human medical assistance. "The Corvin homeworld is requesting emergency medical supplies to deal with the plague that broke out in their refugee camps," Lisa's assistant informed her during their morning briefing. Lisa remembered the Corvin general who had talked about strip mining Earth and using humans as expendable labor. "Send basic medical supplies and a team of human doctors," she decided. "But make it clear that this is humanitarian aid, not the advanced treatment that they denied to us for years." Colonel Rick Turner walked through the rebuilt cities of human space and felt a deep satisfaction at what humanity had accomplished. The Terra Liberation Front had evolved into a peacekeeping organization that helped maintain order throughout the galaxy. Former enemies now asked for human assistance in resolving disputes and maintaining stability. The old Galactic Council had ruled through fear and oppression, forcing weaker species to submit to the will of the powerful. The Human Federation operated on different principles, treating all member species with respect while maintaining firm control over those who might threaten galactic peace. Captain Ben Hughes commanded a mixed squadron that included former pirates, who had attacked human shipping during the early days of the conspiracy. These same beings now served under human command and helped patrol the trade routes they had once terrorized. Ben had learned that many of the so-called pirates had actually been desperate refugees from worlds conquered by the Council, forced into criminal activity by circumstances beyond their control. "It is strange," his Drakmari navigation officer commented during a routine patrol. 6 months ago, we were enemies trying to kill each other. Now we work together to protect the same shipping lanes." Ben nodded as he watched the peaceful flow of trade between worlds that had been at war such a short time ago. That is what happens when you treat people with respect, instead of trying to enslave them. Amazing how cooperation works better than oppression. Dr. Alex Rodriguez had become the head of Galactic Communications, using his code-breaking skills to create secure networks that connected human space with friendly alien territories. The same technology that had revealed the alien conspiracy now helped maintain peace and stability throughout the galaxy. "We are receiving surrender offers from 3 more Zeltharian holdout groups," Alex reported to President Walsh during their weekly briefing. "They are offering to reveal the locations of secret weapons caches and prisoner facilities in exchange for amnesty." Karen considered the offer carefully. The remaining Zeltharian forces were no longer a serious military threat, but they still held human prisoners from the early days of the war. Tell them that we will consider amnesty for any group that releases all human prisoners unharmed and provides complete information about Council war crimes. Mike Thompson had been elected governor of Mars by the same workers who had helped him turn the planet into a fortress during the war. Under his leadership, Mars had become a center of advanced manufacturing that produced goods for the entire human federation. The mining tunnels that had once hidden weapons now housed factories that built everything from starships to medical equipment. Production is up 30% this quarter, Mike's industrial coordinator reported. Orders are coming in from 40 different star systems, and we are having trouble keeping up with demand. Mike smiled as he remembered the days when alien overseers had treated human workers like replaceable machines. Now those same workers were running the most advanced industrial complex in known space, and their products were sought after throughout the galaxy. Dr. Jennifer White continued her research from a new laboratory complex on Luna, where she worked, to understand the scientific principles behind technologies that the aliens had used for thousands of years without truly comprehending. Her discoveries were shared freely with allied species while being carefully restricted from potential enemies. The quantum resonance field generators that power their faster-than-light communications are actually quite primitive, Jennifer explained to a gathering of human and alien scientists. With some modifications, we can increase transmission speed by a factor of 10 while using half the energy. Angela Foster had transformed her spy network into a diplomatic intelligence service that helped the Human Federation understand and work with the dozens of different species now under human protection. Her agents were no longer hidden operatives, but official representatives who helped maintain peaceful relations between former enemies. The galaxy is more stable now than it has been in centuries, Angela reported to the Federation Council. Species that fought each other for resources under the old system are now cooperating to build a better future for everyone. Karen Walsh stood on the observation deck of the new Federation headquarters on Earth and looked up at the stars that had once seemed so threatening. Humanity had been forced to abandon their peaceful nature when faced with extinction, but they had gained something valuable in return. They had earned the respect of the galaxy and proven that freedom was worth fighting for. The Galactic Council's betrayal had indeed doomed them, but it had also revealed the true strength of humanity. When pushed to the edge of survival, humans had not just fought back but had won so completely that the very idea of opposing them had become unthinkable. The stars themselves now belonged to those brave enough to claim them, and humanity had proven they were the bravest of all.